So welcome back to the show. Thank you, Idris, for joining us once again. We have what is likely the biggest fight of the year. Right? It has to be Chris Eubank Jr. against Conor Benn. It's fight day. So we're just looking at what is happening, the build up so far. It's been so controversial, so crazy. You have the fathers involved, you have the sons involved. So this is not just a boxing match, it's a family affair, it's a blood feud that spans 2 generations of British boxing.
Yes. 30 years in making.
Yeah, and all that is coming to a head today.
Wow.
So give us some background. What is this event about?
Okay, I think it's in terms of boxing skills, championship and all that. I wouldn't put it as like one of the biggest boxing events, but in terms of the build-up, the history behind it, like this year, definitely, like this is possibly one of the biggest events. I heard that the stadium is completely sold out. Yeah. 60,000 tickets, all sold out. So now the rivalry has been 30 years in the making. Yeah. You get like anyone who's into boxing, big time boxing, knows who the flamboyant man is. That's Chris Eubank Senior.
Yeah.
He's such a stylish fighter, and he's so flamboyant, so eloquent. You just can't miss him in the game. Then the Nigel Bell, that's the father of Conor.
Yeah.
He was also a champion at some point. He was a boxing champion, and the rivalry they had in the 90s. Any 90s or so, and now
91.
Yeah, we thought with the rematch they had then after the first fight that was won by Chris Senior, we thought that was the end of it, and here we are now, almost 35 years later.
Yeah,
and we're back to it again. We're back to it in a different style. Chris is like his father. Ben is like his father as well. He has the emotion, the passion. Chris seems more calculative, more calm, more eloquent with his words. So we are back at it again. We are going to have a go for the second time, and I truly cannot wait to see the fight today.
Did you see anything being passed down? Not just like you see, Chris tries to talk like his father. Obviously, he doesn't have the same pizzazz as his father does when you're talking about speaking and your presence outside the ring. But in the boxing, in their respective boxing, do you see anything that they've taken from their fathers? Like Chris, do you see a similar style to Senior, or with Conor, do you see a similar style to Nigel?
Okay, to be fair, I see more of Nigel in Conor.
Right.
Like when the passion, the aggression, because Conor was Ben was an aggressive fighter. He's a pressure fighter. He puts it in your face. He's right there in your face. Throws a lot of punches and all that, like heavy punches. I see that in Conor as well. And to be fair, like Conor has not really been in the limelight in boxing for some time. Just like coming into the limelight. I think his best fight possibly was against Chris or Jerry. Who at that time was already 37 years old. So I can see a lot of similarities between Conor and Ben. But in terms of Chris Eubank Senior and Chris Eubank Jr., I've been following the career of Chris Eubank Jr. I've followed him up to the time before George Groves. What was the other guy's name? George Groves and the guy that lost to Canelo, Billy Joe Saunders. He lost those two fights. I cannot really see the grit. There's this grit about Chris Senior. Like he has this self-belief, like so much self-belief in himself, because when he was going into that fight with Nigel Bell for the first time in 1990, I think Nigel Bell was the favorite. Everybody thought Nigel Bell. Yeah, Nigel Bell was going. People thought Nigel Bell was going to win that fight. But he was the fans' favorite. But Chris showed himself. He showed his grit. To be fair, I've not really seen that in Chris Jr. But I know he has the skills. He has got. He's a world champion. He has been a world champion. So has he really lived up to his father's legacy? he's made a name for himself, but I don't think he has matched the legacy of his father. And I see, of course, he's his father. You see some similarities, like in the way they move naturally. You understand why fighting? But to say like he's a replicant of his father, no, I don't really see that. But I see that in Conor and Ben more than Chris Senior and Chris Junior.
Okay, now like obviously in the build-up, we've talked about their past growing up.
Yeah.
And like you said something about the legacy. Nigel is not a world champion. He's never held a world title. What I'm saying,
are you sure about that?
Yeah, I'm saying here that.
Are you sure? Nigel has never held a world title.
No, I meant Conor, the son.
Okay, of course.
I meant the son.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I told you.
Yeah, but Chris I think Chris has held a few belts. WBA, I'm saying.
Yes, he has.
IBO. The question is today's match a title fight?
Today's match, I don't. I have to confirm that, but I don't think it's a title match or a fight. I think Chris dropped his belt, but let me just be sure about that. I believe Chris dropped his belt. Like, this is not going to be a title match, even for the fact
he dropped
that
his belt just to fight this guy.
Yeah, like he then aside that, he even missed weight. You understand? So if it was going to be a title fight, I don't think they would let that happen with him missing weight.
Yes, I saw it. So I saw that he missed weight by 0.05 pounds. And
okay. Are you sure? Is it not 3 pounds?
Well, I saw 0.05, and he got fined. He got fined 500,000
for the second time.
So what is his natural weight? What does he normally fight at? Because these weights, there are so many different types. I'm seeing super middleweight here. I'm seeing middleweight. It's like different organizations have their own different limits.
Yeah.
Because here I'm seeing that he won the IBO middleweight title. That was his last fight last year, October.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So he's the present IBO middleweight champion.
Yes, fighters like they move. They like, for a fighter like Chris, who's already 35 years old, he would have fought in different weight division. He probably has moved up, because when he first came up in the early days of his boxing, he was a lot skinnier. Like, when you look at his physiques, I remember him on the road. I can't remember at what weight class he started from.
Yeah.
But I knew at some point he was fighting in the middleweight, because he was fighting guys like Billy Joe Saunders, and he was fighting Bruce, and those guys are all in the middleweight.
And
so these fights,
all the weight in the middleweight.
For middleweight, they have. Let me just so I won't mix my words. Let me just quickly check. Because so many combat sports right now, they have different weight class, how they class their weight. So typically, boxer win between 154 and 60. That's about 70 to 73 kg class under middleweight.
Okay. Because I'm seeing here, so his first attempt he had 160.2, and the second attempt he had 160.05.
Okay, that's about 0.5.
Yeah, 0.05. And he got fined 500,000. So it wasn't until this story came out that I started to harken back to what Senior was saying. Because Eubank Senior has been in the media criticizing this fight, criticizing Junior, saying, Junior is not behaving the way he taught him. He should have a bit more class. He shouldn't go around hitting people with an egg on the face. But even prior to him calling his son a disgrace in public, which I think we should address, he talked about his fear for Chris fighting and getting knocked out. So, and he said that he's afraid that Chris will get knocked out. But my question is, or at least now that I'm seeing the pain and the struggle for Chris to get down to this weight, how dehydrated he is, how emaciated he looks. You see him, he looks really, really bad. If you look at it, if you get the pictures. But I think this is what he meant. The fact that his son will be drained, they put a rehydration clause on him. Thankfully, this morning he met the rehydration limit. But 14 hours is not enough time to get your body back to healthy fighting shape. What do you think of Chris's comments in light of that? Chris Senior was criticizing the fight, not just Junior's antics and his behavior, but he also expressed his fear that Junior would get knocked out. So, seeing that and comparing it to what happened yesterday with Chris going down such a huge amount to make the weight, I think those fears are a little bit legitimate. What do you think?
Yeah, I saw the video yesterday when they were taking their weights, when they went on the scale, and I actually made a comment online that this fight shouldn't happen. They already know my opinion on weight drain. Like, Chris has been draining of his natural size. He's looking skinny, unhealthy, and I don't know. There's a rehydration clause. Like, he's not supposed to get certain weight back. You understand? Like, I don't know how he's going to be fit. You understand? And get himself back. You understand? In order to be able to perform at his optimal level, because for fighters it's not easy. Boxing is a dangerous sport. You can't play boxing. You understand? It's actually a dangerous sport. People go in there and you can literally die there. You understand? So for a father who understands the game of boxing and who has incurred severe pain on people, like who gives someone a brain damage, a long-term medical condition, so he understands. He's speaking from a position of experience. If I was Chris' brother, if I was his dad, I'll also possibly advise him not to get in this fight. Not because not because Conor is a better fighter or Conor is a stronger guy, but I think naturally they are not the same weight. And to have so much, to drain your weight, to prevent yourself from eating, just to get into a fight, I don't buy into that. And to me, this fight was I was putting Chris as the favorite, like 80-20. But right now, looking at him, just the size of him, how skinny he is, he looks unhealthy. Like, I don't know how he's going to manage. You understand? He will probably get some of the weight back. He will get some of the weight back, but it's about the mental game, because before they go into that scale, you understand, you have to put your whole energy, your whole time that you're supposed to use in training into losing weight. You understand? So, like, to try and get yourself back, and it's going to be a problem. And I'm actually concerned about that. And for a father that just lost his son last year, or I think was it last year that Chris lost his brother, Raheem. So I can understand his fear. Not to want Chris in this fight.
Wait, the brother was a boxer?
Yeah, I don't know if the one that passed away is a boxer, but I know he has a brother who is a boxer. Or the brother passed away like last year. Like, they lost the brother. Yeah, they lost the brother, and for a father that lost a child, you wouldn't want the other child to put his life at risk, because anything can happen.
Sebastian died suddenly. Okay. Right. So even me, like, because I was looking at this fight, I know it's the biggest fight of the year. My impression was that the drug cheat, the person who does drugs and has, the weight of the media behind him, and the youth on his side, and the power on his side, and let's say the record on his side, I looked at that person as the initial favorite, which is Conor Benn. Right? But then I now started going back to look at Chris Eubank, older, more experienced, has a far better CV as far as I'm concerned, fighting at a far higher level. So I was like, okay, fine. With this, I think Chris Eubank is going to win. Until I saw him on the first day of the media week, and he walked onto the stage, and I saw him, I don't want to call it stumble, but he wasn't walking correctly, right? I saw him walking, he looked a little bit frail. I was like, what's wrong with this guy? Then all these weight things started coming up, which now gave me an understanding that this is what has been happening. He's been fighting to keep his weight down. So he cannot even walk correctly. He doesn't have the right energy. So once I saw that, I was like, okay, this is not good. This is definitely skewed in Ben's favor.
Sorry.
No problem. So let me take that again. I was saying that at first I thought the younger guy, the more explosive guy, with a few knockouts, with a good record behind him, I thought he would have the advantage. But then I saw Eubank, I saw his CV, I saw his experience, I saw that he fights at a much higher level, let's say. But then once I saw them walking on the stage, I saw Nigel walking fine, walking normal. Eubank was he looked like the queen. Like he looked very frail. He looked like he was very conscious of his steps. So now that I now saw that he missed weight and he has all these challenges in getting his weight down, I now realize why on Monday or was it Tuesday I saw him walking around like that, because he's drained. So it's very, very difficult for me to give Eubank the edge going forward. Is there a way that he can overcome this physical adversity between now and fight night?
Yeah, well, people have done it before. Boxers have done it in the past, so we cannot rule out the possibility of him coming into the fight and even dominating the fight. I think the gap in quality and experience between Conor and Chris is quite a lot, because Chris is fighting at world level. He's fighting at world level for some. He fought in British level, then moved on to world level, and his name was even being mentioned at some points with people like Canelo. Fought Billy Joe. Billy Joe was a good fighter, and George Groves too is a hell of a fighter. He's been training, sparring with people like Groves and like the big name in British boxing. Yeah. So now, I think, assuming Conor was in the same weight class with Chris, it should have been a straight up prediction for me. But now looking at the weight drain, like it's a problem. I didn't really like how he looked when I saw him. On the scale after he left the scale, he was looking really frail. So I don't know how he's going to translate that. I don't know what he's going to do, but if he's able to get some of that weight back, and get into the ring. He's still the bigger man. He's still bigger than Conor. So on that fight night, like, we'll see what he's able to do with himself. But I don't think he's at an advantage now, considering how much weight he lost.
Yeah. So I mean, back to his dad. His dad saying he's not going to be part of the event. He doesn't want anything to do with Conor. Called him Chris. Called him a disgrace and all this. What do you make of that?
Well, I feel Chris, in terms of ability to talk, to be flamboyant and to be stylish, like in boxing, I think he's right there in the upper echelons of boxing when it comes to that. And we should also remember that he likes attention. And there was a time Junior was supposed to was having a press conference like before a fight. I can't remember who he was fighting, but when he was still in his corner, like he was practically stealing all the attention.
I've seen those clips.
Yeah,
talking for his son. It's like, come on, bro.
Exactly. I think when he lost to George Groves, I can't remember if it's George Groves or if it was his last fight, that they had to get him off the corner. So Chris, for me, like Chris Senior, like. He likes attention, like he would say certain things to draw the attention to himself. But at the same time, I feel he actually meant what he says by calling his son in disgrace. As a father, you just lost your son. And here's another son trying to drain himself just to get into a fight. The dad has advised him not to get into that fight. So there are many people who possibly take their father's advice. Him not taking his dad's advice will rub the father off in the wrong way. Definitely, you understand. So calling him a disgrace like entails so many things. Not like he's a lunatic or a wayward child, but I think more or less it's like just that personal disappointment from your father. I just lost one of you. I just lost my son, and I don't want to risk your life. I don't want you risking your life. For the sake of me and for the sake of boxing. Don't get into this fight. I don't want you getting knocked out. I don't want you ruining my legacy, our legacy, the family legacy. So it's possibly from that position of love, for his son, and also for the fear of the danger that it poses. But ultimately, for me as a boxing fan, I don't see Chris Jr. as a disgrace. I think he's a man of his own. He's 35 years old. He can make decisions for himself. So if he wants to get into the fight, he has his own kids. He has his own family. £10 million is a lot of money, you understand? So we have to think about the money that what he stands to gain. At some point, I was of the opinion that Chris Senior would come around. I thought it was a mind game. I thought he was playing mind game. He was trying to get. He's a master of playing my game. That's Chris Senior. He plays a lot of my game, you know. So I thought it was a tactics, it was a deception, it's a way of trying to rather than win with force and just use deception to get into Conor's head. I thought he was going to show up today at Fat Night. I felt like I expected him to show up. But what changed my mind about that is when I saw Chris, you know, after he came off the scale, if he was my brother, if he was my son, I wouldn't want him to fight. So I think the dad is actually very serious about that. I think the father is from a genuine position of concern and love for his child.
Wow. So, I mean, Chris Jr. is correct about his father. You know, I mean, he talked about when growing up, the father would take him to school in like a big diesel truck. You know, like, I mean, just give the people what we're talking about. Like an 18-wheeler. He used to drive an 18-wheeler to drop this boy in school. And it's like, this is what Chris Eubank used to drive. So you put all this unnecessary attention on your son. He talked about how he was bullied because his father was so eccentric. This is what Chris Senior used to take his son to school in.
I would like to write in that, to be honest.
Yes, but you are painting a target on your son's back. So Chris Jr., he was talking about it with Piers Morgan in that interview with Ben.
Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah, and he was talking about how, like, even though his upbringing should have been softer, or you know, should have been a little bit softer than his dad actually made his upbringing more difficult. Because you go to school, you're coming to school in this kind of nonsense. Your dad is wearing a cowboy hat in the middle of February, like the coldest time of the year, and all the kids are making fun of you. So he has basically demystified you, and he has painted a target on your back. So now you already naturally have enemies. So he sees that as a positive, that he has to fight to get out of that shadow. He has to fight to get that paint off his back.
Yeah,
and he believes that he has overcome that hurdle. In fact, he even said that at some point his dad was bankrupt, right?
Yeah.
So you know, typical black athletes, they lose all the money, and now and now Chris is back in the money. He's making a name and some money for himself. So I think his grit cannot be questioned.
Okay. Well. Let me just, sorry for cutting you off. I think, first of all, like, he should be grateful for the kind of lifestyle, the hand that the dad gave him, you know, because if it wasn't for that, probably he would not be in boxing and he would not be making the 10 million pounds he's about to make. You know, like the last time, like I said, boxing is a poor man's sport. You know, you have to have that inner anger. You have to have something behind that is pushing you to just want to get in the ring. It takes a special kind of mental fortitude to want to get in the ring and actually trade punches with someone else. You know, hitting you on your face, hitting you on your liver. Like, these are vital organs, you know. And you know, just for the passion for the sport and for the money. You know, assuming the dad has raised him in a softer way, you know, take him to school with a Lamborghini or a Ferrari, you know, probably he wouldn't be a boxer today. You understand? Possibly he wouldn't be a boxer, because how many boxing greats, like, how among all these big time boxers, whether it's Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis, Joe Louis, you know, Rocky Marciano, how many of them have truly had kids that came into boxing and became world champions? How many? Possibly
we can't count them on one hand, like.
No, you can't. Just Muhammad Ali, and it was his daughter. You know, being a girl
that doesn't count. Like,
no, but it does count. She's a world champion. She's a legend in boxing, and you can't take that away from her. You understand? So let's just leave that as that. But how many of the greats, like, of
course. What I mean is like male boxing, like actual boxing.
Yeah, actual male boxer who has ever attempted.
I can't think of anybody whose father was a champion and his son was a champion.
Joe Frazier tried. He put all his best to make his son a heavyweight champion. It wasn't possible. You know, the only people who their dads were boxers and they turned out to be champions. Their dad had a smaller career and they didn't really have that limelight. Like Floyd Mayweather, you understand? His dad was not all that spectacular, but he was just at some point you could even say he was just good as a boxer, or someone like Michael Holton. I don't know if you know him. He was in the cruiserweight division. Michael Holton.
But with Mayweather, with Mayweather is Mayweather, right? We can't even call his father Mayweather Senior. Like Floyd took that from him and said, "No, I am not Junior." He
made the name. Him and Rogers made the name.
Yeah, he made that name. So the father cannot claim that name. Same thing with Fury. The Fury name is Tyson's. It's not John.
Exactly.
So it's Tyson's children and Mayweather's children we have to be looking at.
Exactly. So how many do you see an elite boxer having a child?
5. We can't count. We can't even count.
No, you can't really count it. So Chris Eubank Jr. has is actually a very special thing.
Yeah.
You know, for your dad to have been a boxing world champion and you're here fighting at an elite level, you know, he has grit. I won't deny that he has that passion. He has the mental fortitude to even be fighting on this level. You know, I give that to him. Okay, so but I just think his dad was still more rugged than him, more tougher. Like compared to every time like he got into a tough fight, how he was able to stand up and fight back. You know, it shows a lot of grit. I think he has showed it more than Junior.
Okay.
Joe Frazier, he had a son. His son fought Mike Tyson. I think Tyson knocked him out in the first round.
I'm trying to even find the person, but I don't see it. That's the son.
The son's name is the son's name is Joe Frazier. The son's name is almost Marcus Frazier or something like Marvin Frazier or Marcus Frazier.
Marvis Frazier.
Yeah, Marvis Frazier. Yeah. So Marvis Frazier was he tried his best to make a name in boxing, but he couldn't really get to that level. He was lucky enough to fight Mike Tyson, but he was knocked out in the first round.
30 seconds.
Yeah, 30 seconds. Yeah.
Or 30 seconds left in the first round. That's one thing. Wow. Okay, so that's cool. So I mean, just as a way to wrap up, it has been a fantastic exposition into this really huge event.
Yeah.
Who do you have winning this fight?
Well, like for me right now, I think it's. I think I still give it to Chris. I would still give it to Chris.
Despite all that.
Yeah, I would still give it to Chris. Chris is a world champion.
Yes.
Chris is an athlete. Yeah. He's an athlete physically. You understand? He's a specimen. You know, I've seen him like on the ropes, on the pads. He's good, and he has the experience. He has been there like in a bigger stage, and he seems to be more composed. He's not bringing in so much passion into the fight, you know. So
emotion. Yes, I noticed that Niger was very, very emotional.
Yeah, like Niger is a little bit emotional. Javi is that day.
I mean, Conor. Sorry, I keep calling that.
Sorry, yeah, Conor is a little bit more emotional. Javi is that. Niger there as well, you know, like some of the remarks he was making, talking about what happened at the sparring, how his son knocked out this person, knocked out that person. I don't really think he needs that. I don't really think he needs that for this fight. He needs to be focused. He needs not to put emotion into the fight. He needs to be calculative, because that was what happened between Niger and Chris Senior in the first fight. You know, Chris came in with so much aggression, you know, and ultimately, Nigel came in with aggression and all that. He put in the pressure, but Chris was more calculative. Like he had this dominion, like he has this self-belief and self-confidence in himself, a silent self-confidence. Like he didn't have to talk about it, you know. Then at the end of the day, like he knocked him out. So I actually feel Chris Jr., you know, just from his CV alone.
Yeah.
Like the people he's fought, his experience, I think he'll pull through. I think he's still going to beat Conor.
Okay. Well, I think it's going to be Conor for two reasons, or two main reasons.
Okay.
Reason number one is the youth and the power on his side. And I mean, we have to talk about.
See, the power, right? How is he going to translate that power? Like he's moving up 2 weight class.
Yeah.
You know, he's fighting a bigger man. You know, he's not fighting Chris or Jerry. He's fighting a bigger guy, and he's doing that for the first time. So we cannot really judge. We can't really tell how Conor power is going to translate at this level. You know, so he's got power. Like everybody has got power in boxing. Like you let them crack you with a good shot, you are going down. You know, but for size really matters a lot. Like how is he going to translate his power with 2 weight classes, jumping 2 weight classes? You know, I think that's another question we have to ask ourselves.
That's true. He's actually smaller, much smaller than Chris. He has, I mean, Chris is 5'11", Conor is 5'8". So I was actually going to say, in addition, that I mean, we didn't even talk about his drug problems. I guess we're not talking too much about that these days. I guess people can just fail drugs tests and it's fine. But
no, it's not fine. Like it's never fine with me. Like if you fail the drug test, I think boxing now, like because with guys like your boy Jake, KSI and all these YouTubers in boxing, they brought a lot of casual fans into boxing. And some of these guys don't really care whether you feel drug tests or you don't feel drug tests. They just they give their opinion based on how they like you. Because I remember a lot of people like online, like if you see what's his name, David Haley and
Ryan Garcia. I was going to bring that in.
Ryan Garcia, you understand? Like Ryan failed the drug test, but you see a lot of people defending him. What is the content? It doesn't amount to anything. Like they come up with different, you get like, but it's not truly really about that. You're a professional. Like what is expected of you, and if it's your responsibility to make sure whether it's contamination, whatever reason it is, like you just have to ensure that you on that day that you are tested, you come in negative.
Right. So the way I look at it, actually, I was going to bring in Ryan Garcia because in his fight with Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia was drained. In fact, they monitored his food and everything. That day, like to make that 140 was so difficult.
Yeah, it was. I saw a little bit of Ryan in what's his name?
In Chris.
That's exactly why
I'm going Ben.
I can see his ribs, like his rib cage, like you can literally see his bones in his rib cage.
Correct. So that's exactly my point. Like he's drained. Like Ryan Garcia, he did not have any power going into that fight. They kept him down. They didn't allow him to rehydrate even maybe until 5 hours before the fight, that kind of thing. So in my mind, that under those conditions, under that pressure, the fact that Ryan, I'm just using Ryan's example, Ryan agreed to all these stipulations just to fight Gervonta. For me, it says yes, fine, it was better for him. He wanted to put on the fight to prove himself, to mark his name. But even though let's say Ryan Garcia is the better boxer, let's say for example, like those things affected him, those things put him down. And I think that a similar situation is happening here. I think it's easier for a boxer to gain weight than to drop it. And where you have someone like Eubank suffering at 35 to make 160 under a rehydration clause, already being fine, I think that those things do add up on the night.
It does. It's going to take its toll. Like it's like if you remember, like I said, right? I said this fight, if I was going to rank it, I was going to put it on 80-20%. I was going to give Chris 80% because I felt Chris was just going to run through him. You understand? Get the job done. And whether it's a knockout, whether it's a decision, I was giving it to Chris. The reason why I feel it's a competitive fight is because of the weight drain. The weight drain, what Chris has to go through, because it's not easy. You understand? The mental challenge, like toll, like that it takes on you, and not just the mental toll, the physical toll, because you can't even drink water, you can't even eat what you want to eat or what you have to eat. I think boxing. It's not for boxing, to be honest. Like we have to get that out of the way. Like for boxers, like someone in that fight against Tank, I saw that fight. Ryan wasn't looking good
at all.
And I think it had an effect on Ryan even after the fight.
1,000.
Even after the fight, like after months after the fight, it had a toll on Ryan, his behavior and everything. There was just something about him that went off. You understand? Like like you're a lawyer, I'm a lawyer myself. Just imagine like you're preparing for a case, one of the biggest cases in your life, and they put you at a disadvantage and you're going up against someone else who is almost as good as you or who is even slightly better than you. You understand? And you were put into these conditions, you were not allowed to read the law reports, certain restrictions were placed on you, then you go in there and you lose your case, or you understand, or you lose your argument. Like it's going to take a toll on you. It's going to take a toll on you even after that decision, because you start asking yourself so many questions like, this is not fair. I know I would have done better. I would have done this. I would have done that. So for me, I try to see that as well as a professional in my field. If you were to put me at a disadvantage and I'm going up against someone who is possibly or even evenly matched as I am, equally as good as I am, and I go in there at a disadvantage and they beat me.
Yeah.
It's going to have a toll on me. It's going to have a toll on me, not just the long-term effect of that. And I think it had a long-term effect on Ryan. And there are so many fighters that it has actually affected. Boxing has to look at that, and they have to put that aside. Some of all these guys.
Yo. Are we back?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay.
I don't. The screen is not even coming up. Okay, there we go. All right. So you're saying boxing needs to do something about this issue of weight?
Before something.
I think Chris was right, or Chris is correct in his fear that his son will get knocked out. And I mean, I'm leaning on that experience. I'm leaning on the fact that I saw Chris Eubank Jr. walking, and he couldn't walk. This is somebody who is getting ready for the biggest fight of his life, and he has difficulty walking. Obviously, that was a few days ago, but things have continued since. So I'm going to have to give Conor the advantage in this bout. I believe that Conor is going to win, but the entire British public is behind Chris Eubank. The people on the streets, like street level, everybody.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure that
that's what I'm hearing? That's what
I'm
hearing from the streets of North London. That the people have rallied behind Chris, following his father's, comments against him. Obviously, people don't like the fact that Nigel is a drug cheat. So, and people are saying for the first time in his boxing career, he is a fan favorite in England or in Britain. So, I think that will help Chris in the fight. Maybe it will help him tap into that deeper spirit within him, that the power, the experience, everything. Because honestly, when I'm looking back at his former fights. He made 159. He made lower weights before, but of course, as we all know, as you get older, it's a little bit more difficult.
You get bigger.
Yeah, a little bit more difficult for him. So, while I would like Chris to win, what I saw with my eyes, what I've seen with my eyes, I think Nigel is going to win.
Okay, now let's try and check out the possibility. How many times has Chris been knocked out in his career?
How many
times has
been knocked out?
Times has Chris been knocked out? Like once? I think that was the case.
Knocked out by Liam Smith.
Once. Yeah, once. Yeah. He's lost 3 fights to Saunders, Billy Joe, and he lost to Josh Gould. Then he also lost to Liam Smith, and that was the knockout. And I think that was, nobody expected that. Nobody saw that coming. It was
fourth round.
Yeah, in fourth round, and it happened. He avenged it and knocked Liam Smith out as well. I think he underestimated Liam Smith.
Yeah.
It wasn't on this level. The chances of Chris getting knocked out in a fight, he's had 37 fights. He's only been knocked out once. And he wasn't just knocked out on the basis of he was overmatched. He was knocked out because of complacency from his own side. You understand? Because he underestimated his opponent. He wasn't at his A game. He didn't really bring his best out there. Trust me, if Chris brings his best out there against Conor, it's not going to be a fight. It's going to beat up Conor. He's going to dominate the fight, and either he wins. If it's not a knockout, then he's going to win by unanimous decision.
Well, I guess there's only one way to find out, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll find out too.
Thank you so much for joining us with your
sorry, before we go, because this is the first time that I'm coming online for boxing, and I think we have to I know it has been a little bit of time, but we just have to pay a little homage to the great guy, George Foreman. The hittest, right? Rest in peace. Like the hittest heavyweights, the heaviest and hittest, hardest hitter. In heavyweight boxing, and in boxing, it's a great loss, and we hope you rest in peace, and we shouldn't miss him in boxing.
All right, thank you so much for your kind words. Shout out to the family. We hope the best for them. And thank you, Idris, for giving us the grace of your knowledge and your insight. And we will be watching the match together. We'll see who wins.
No problem. I'm already ready for the fight.
Thank you so much. Take care. Have a lovely day.
Okay, so you're welcome. Thanks.